Jenny, and I'm going to share a shaker card that I did with a couple of the different um, Tonic craft kits. And I'm going to start mostly by using this panel die. It's one of the sort of A2 panel dies that have come out recently, and it's got a border with it. And I'm going to cut a circle out of part of the pattern to have my sentiment inside of it. And I'm going to use one of these stamped sentiments. It's from another of the craft kits. And I'm going to do a shaker piece behind the entire panel piece. So it's supposed to be sort of like a full shaker card. And then I'm going to ink blend the entire background. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is to that's the pockets I'm going to use. It's one of the Project Life pockets. They're like a 4x6, and what I wanted to do is have the entire piece be a shaker. So I'm going to use that piece and then size it to be exactly right for my card, and use my fuse tool to seal it up with a bunch of the sequins and confetti inside. So first off, I'm going to cut some pretty heavy cardstock. I believe it is the Neenah Solar White in 110. It's just got a good heavy weight, and I mean, I'm kind of stingy with it because it is pricey, but if I can, I would much rather use that than just about anything else. And I'm going to use the border too. And so I ran that through my Gemini, and that's it on the top. It's sort of got with that border, it's sort of a deckled edge. This is the Vibrant Damask panel die, and I'm going to pop out the rest of those details. It's very intricate and very detailed, and it cuts great, but I'm going to pop those out later and not bore you with that too much. But I'm going to use these new hybrid inks that are from the Dream in Color trend that came out at the beginning of the year. And what I'm planning on doing is trying to sort of, I'm going to have this sort of circle at the top kind of half of the damask pattern, and I'm going to radiate it out from there. So that's sort of my circle there. And so I'm going to start in the center and then fan out from there using the different hybrid inks. I'm using one of the life-changing brushes here with the powdered peach hybrid ink, and I'm only using that because I didn't have sort of a dedicated color for it with these Nuvo stencil brushes, which I love. They're great. I love them because if you have a heavy hand like I do, it sort of makes you have to color them in light because it just goes on a lot lighter than like a blending foam or foam applicator or something like that. So that is the Lotus Flower. It's the pink color. And then next I'm going to use this Mint Macaroon, which is gorgeous. And these three colors together just look beautiful. And actually, I'm kind of sad because a lot of this, the majority of it got covered up with the panel and with the shaker bits, which kind of was the idea. I thought a little bit of it might show through, but I need to make another card with that sort of as the focus because I loved these colors together, and I thought it was kind of cool using that sort of radiating pattern. So that's the die cut piece I'm going to cut out the circle from, and it's just one of the circles from the Tonic Studios sort of basics dies that are circles, concentric circles, and I'm going to end up using another one of the circles in a minute. And you'll see there off to the right, that's, I didn't show it, but I've got two layers of sort of fun foam that I cut out using the same die to give my card some lift for the shaker bits. And that's quickly becoming my favorite thing to do for any kind of a dimension because it's easy, it's accurate if I use it to die, with a die cut that's matching. It's consistent because all along the edge is the same, and it's really so much cheaper. So that's what I've been using more and more. So I'll have 2 layers of the fun foam and then the piece of the heavier cardstock on top with that cutout piece. So this is one of the stamps from it's the craft kit number 18. And it says wishing you happiness, and there's a couple little sort of branchy leaf pieces on the sides. So I cut the whole thing up so I could stack it like this within that circle. And I had actually planned to use those little branch pieces, but I didn't end up doing that. The one thing that I will say is that the and you just need to be, I needed to be careful, but you need to be careful because if you do use, especially with an intricate die like this, putting it through a Gemini or other die cut machine does really flatten it out, and it's kind of like rolling dough or pasta dough or something out, because it does spread it out, and so it ends up being a little bit larger than the original die cut piece that is not cut from something that does have like stretch or sort of that give. So that's sort of something to remember. And I try to remember to constantly put a piece of other paper or cardstock or something over one of these pieces when I push them down and try to adhere them together instead of just using my hands, because I will inevitably transfer glue and mess everything up. So these are just the Project Life Becky Higgins 4x6 pockets, and I am going to use one of the entire pockets for this shaker card, and I thought it'd be easy because it makes it easier if it's the whole pocket's already covered. You don't have to mess with additional dimensional adhesive and all that. I'm going to use my fuse tool here to seal up the pocket, and then once I put my sequins and everything in, I'll seal up the other side. But what I had planned to do was to heat emboss my sentiment on top of this pocket behind the circle, and these are not meant to be heat embossed. I tried several times, and it's just not the kind of acetate. It just wouldn't work. So I ended up kind of going through something different, but I did use this for the pocket. And I'm going to fill it with several different sequins and confetti. I use the Champagne Shine sequins that I believe are from the Woodland Walk collection. They're like a really pale gold. They're kind of striated or sort of faceted, kind of, if that makes sense, even though they're sequins. And I use the turquoise Aqua Aurora that are from the Let It Snow collection. The candy pink hexagons that are from one of the Valentine's collections, and the rose gold squares from the Golden Years collection, I believe it is. And then I also use some Neat and Tangled sequins that I had, and those were all kind of matching the dye inks that I used to ink blend that with. All right, so now I'm going to grab this other circle die that is just a little bit larger. And so what I thought I would do, because this panel die, it's not meant to be cut out like this, and it sort of leaves some rough edges. So what I thought I would do is use these 2 dies together and cut like a little bit of a border that would go around the outside of the circle on the outside of the card, and just kind of finish it off a bit. So I decided to use a piece of this gold glitter paper from the most recent Tonic craft kit that's number 21. And it is gorgeous glitter paper. There's no glitter that comes off it. It's stunning. And a little bit is just what you need for a little bit of shine. So that's what that is going to kind of look like. And also that's going to be sort of the outside piece for me to be able to adhere my new acetate piece that I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment on. I did this several times, and every time I heat emboss with acetate, I do need to do it several times. I think this is called Duralar. I can't remember. It's supposed to be heat resistant, acid free, all the things you could want. It's a very heavy, consistent uh, acetate, and uh, as long as you don't touch the middle of it or touch the part that you're going to heat emboss, it works really well. Um, I have learned that sometimes I have my craft room is in our basement, and we have it was carpet and now it's not, so that may have something to do with it. But it used to be the point where I just didn't even need to use a heat embossing powder bag or powder tool because it actually made it worse. This didn't, and that's amazing. But I um, went ahead and I cut the circle out. I used the Nuvo Clear Mark embossing ink, and I used the fine white detail embossing powder in Glacier white. And I kept I had actually used sort of a piece of just cardstock as a shim behind the acetate, and I kept that behind it so I would have something to hold on to and I could see through, and something to give it a little bit more stability. And then I'll just sort of remove that. I do wipe off as much as I can from any kind of little pieces that show up in the background. And then I'm going to get a really hot heat tool and barely touch it. I mean, just barely kiss it with it, because it does really, it's easy to warp it. It looks amazing, and I don't think I've ever gotten it right on the first try, but it does look great. So that's kind of the way it's going to turn out to look. So I'm going to start to adhere it all together. I'm going to score my card base here at 5.5. So I'll have a top folding A2 size card. And then I'm going to just use the tape runner to add this ink blended piece onto the card base. And then I'm going to use some liquid adhesive to, oh no, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to glue the shaker pocket first. I'm just wiping some of that off. So, you know, I was kind of worried about it, but you really are not going to see any of that adhesive, so I just went ahead and used the same tape runner. Now I'm going to use some liquid adhesive. This is the Deluxe adhesive from Nuvo, which is really good. And I'm literally squeezing every single drop out of this. And I've been saying that for a while, and I keep getting more out of it. So that's the 2 layers of foam, and then the 1 layer of the Neenah cardstock on top. So I'm just going to weight it down with a couple of acrylic blocks and use some of this is the smooth precision pen from Nuvo on that little border piece. I'm going to dab it up on my hand a little bit, which actually helps it not to squish out too much. And then glue that onto that piece of acetate. So then I'll adhere that acetate onto the outside. And I thought about using some Nuvo drops, but I decided to use some of the gems instead, and I chose the rose gold triads, rose triads, and obviously they're sort of a rounded triangle and like a rose gold, which is perfect for that sort of coral color. And I just used 3 of them, and I used 1 of the medium sizes and I think 2 of the small, and I glued them on with some glossy accents to make sure that they stayed in place. And I just used, I probably need a different tool, but I just used my little pickup stick tool thing from it was part of my silhouette, and the bottom piece comes off and it's got like a little pointer and then like a different sort of chisel tip, and then the top part is the little sticky part. So that is what that looked like. And then I have been loving adding something to envelopes lately, so I decided to do that with this one. So I'm going to use the same, from that same stamp set from the Craft Kit 18. I'm going to use this Sending Love stamp, and I'm going to cover up the little hearts on the end with tape while I ink it up with some clear mark and stamp that down. And then I'm going to heat emboss this new embossing powder in the Ocean Sparkle, and I think it's also part of that Dream in Color trend. And it's a gorgeous like turquoise color, but it's also glittery. It's beautiful. So I thought that would be fun on the like, you know, the back side of the envelope. When you start to open it, you could see that. And then I'm going to use that same one, and I'm going to just ink up the hearts that are on the ends of it. I didn't really want to cut it up. And then I'm going to heat emboss those in the gold. It's just the Fine Detail Classic Gold. And heat emboss that too. And that is pretty much the way the card turns out. I really like having a sort of a dedicated envelope for that. I think it kind of, you know, finishes it all off and makes it look like obviously it goes together. So there's the final card, and you can see the close-ups here in a second. Thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate everybody's support and comments. I'd love any feedback if you have it. If you are not a subscriber, I would love for you to subscribe. I've got some exciting things coming up with some blog hops and giveaways, and would love a thumbs up and for you to come back and see again what I've got coming up. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye.